Omagyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshormilitanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Lipa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nikila Bhuvanamaya Chinnavi Chinnakatri Vipura Bahula Migya Mukti Mahanchadatri Shiti Liti Vidi Agaradya Vadesha Dhani Vilasatu Hidi Nityam Bhakti Siddhantavani. So, yesterday was the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, but we weren't able to speak at that time, so today we want to say something. It is our duty and also our joy. Actually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he is like the father of Gaudiya Vaishnavism in the modern age. Now the Gaudiya group is, we're coming in many different branches, right? But we are all under that umbrella of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He is a very central figure in the modern Krishna consciousness movement. Our Gurudev once, he said, he was speaking on maybe it was this day of Saraswati Thakur, saying that you are all the genes, the genes of Saraswati Thakur.
Wow.
Yeah. And often, or even usually, when Gurudev was glorifying Saraswati Thakur on his appearance or disappearance day, then he would emphasize like the living nature of his message, right? And to praise, to glorify Saraswati Thakur, he would speak about how his mission has now spread all over the world, right? What he envisioned, right? What Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur originally conceived, Saraswati Thakur, he began to put that into action, and he established Krishna consciousness for the modern age, how we practice for the modern age. And our Gurudev, he mentioned that, in terms of, because, Krishna consciousness exists as a very high ideal, right? But how we will apply and how we will practice, there are different ways of doing that, right? And we see, in terms of our lineage of gurus and great Vaishnavas, we see many different examples of how to practice Krishna consciousness, right? Rupa and Sanatan living under trees, right? Is that how we're all supposed to live, right? We hear Bhaktivinoda Thakur burned his Brahmin thread, So, like how are we actually practicing these high ideals? Saraswati Thakur is the one who's shown us that path. And our Gurudev mentioned that we won't go beyond Saraswati Thakur. We won't look past Saraswati Thakur in terms of how we will practice. And, sometimes he said we may see different opinions, different ways of doing things, but we are looking to Saraswati Thakur. That was Srila Sridhar Maharaj's statement and Srila Govinda Maharaj's statement both, And he was a Mahajan in the highest sense, and everything about his life was miraculous, divine, and from his birth, right? We hear in his when he was born, his umbilical cord was wrapped around him like a Brahmin thread. That's how he was born, right? And he was born just down the road from the Jagannath Puri temple, right? There's a Gaudiya Mat there today. You can go there and see his birthplace. And we hear that, a few months after he was born, it was the Ratha Yatra festival, and the cart stopped right in front. Right? You probably heard, did you grow up hearing about it? No, because your family weren't exactly Gaudiya Vaishnava, but you've heard these stories before. The Ratha Yatra chariot, right, stopped right in front, wouldn't go, because Jagannath has his own will, actually, and wouldn't leave, and then the mother, she brought the baby out. He's like 6 months old or something at the time. You hear a garland fell from Jagannath, and that was brought to the baby, and then And then the chariot moved on, like that. So from his birth, everything was very mystical. And also actually, let me read that. It's a very, very beautiful verse. Saraswati, Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote some very extraordinary compositions glorifying Saraswati Thakur. And there's one, our Gurudev appreciated very much, where he's describing how, this is a very interesting point. Actually Srila Sridhar Maharaj has made a number of comparisons in his writings to comparing Saraswati Thakur with Mahaprabhu. Right? So he had the golden form of Mahaprabhu. He was spreading kirtan, like Mahaprabhu, and spreading the message of Mahaprabhu. And there's one verse that Srila Sridhar Maharaj includes as one of the introductory verses to Prabhupada Jivanamrita, which is so beautiful. I find it quite a mystical verse, because it's on one level it's glorifying Mahaprabhu, on another level it's glorifying Saraswati Thakur, and on another level it's glorifying the message of Mahaprabhu in a personified form, right? The message of Mahaprabhu can be conceived of as a deity, a worshipable deity, which is also embodied as Saraswati Thakur. Gora Vag Vigraham Vande. Gora Vag Vigraha, right? Vag is like the message, the words of Gora. Vigraha means like a deity, the personification. Vande, I'm giving my respects, my obeisance. That Gora Vag Vigraham Vande. Gaurangam, Gaura Vaibhavam, who is the extension of Mahaprabhu, who has the golden form like Mahaprabhu. Vaibhav is the wealth or the extension of Mahaprabhu. Gaurangam, Gaura Vaibhavam, Gaura Sankirtanonmatam, who is maddened by the kirtan, intoxicated by the kirtan of Mahaprabhu. Gaura Karunya Sundaram, who personifies the beauty of the mercy of Mahaprabhu. So many beautiful verses, and the one I'm thinking of now, it's regarding his divine appearance, and it's Srila Sridhar Maharaj is making this beautiful, is pointing out this beautiful, how can you say, divine circumstance. How the place of Mahaprabhu, Mahaprabhu appeared in Navadvip, and he left in Puri. And Saraswati Thakur, he appeared in Puri, where Mahaprabhu had left, and he left in Navadvip, or in that area within Kolkata, but in that Gauda Mandal area, and then his body was brought to Navadvip, to Mayapur. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote this extraordinary Sanskrit poetry describing that. Let me see if I can find it right now. Here it is. Gurudev appreciated this verse very much. It's a little long to go through now, but this was written particularly in a mood of separation by Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Shri Dayita Das Dashakam. Dayita Das, hidden name of Saraswati Thakur. So it's in this mood of, it's very beautiful poetry. It's 10 verses, and the last line, the refrain of each verse is this line, Yatra so tacha shigram kripananayanehe niyatam kinkaroyam. And there are different layers of meaning, but one is simply, wherever that great soul is, please quickly take the servitor there, right? Feeling this pain of separation. Please quickly take me there, wherever he is. My different layers of meaning. My eyes bereft of that vision, may I come into his darshan. Different meanings there. But this is the verse I'm thinking of. Gorindur ashta shaila kim u kanaka gano nima rij jambu nadya avir bhuta pravarshe nikila jana padam plavayan dava dagdam goravir bhav bhumo rajasi cha sahasa samjugopa swayam swam yatra so tacha shigram kripananayanahe niyatam kinkaroyam. Drawing up the pure golden waters of the Jambu river mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam has this golden cloud. So referring to Saraswati, comparing Saraswati, I forgot this part of the analogy. He's comparing Saraswati Thakur to this golden cloud. that has arisen on the mountain where the golden moon, Mahaprabhu, has descended. So where the golden moon of Mahaprabhu sat, this golden cloud of Saraswati Thakur has arisen. Right? Just to shower down torrents of rain upon the whole countryside that was scorched by the first fire of threefold sufferings, then suddenly conceal himself in the dust of the land of the advent of Sri Gauranga. O Dinanayan, wherever that great soul may be now, please quickly take the servitor to that place. Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote so many beautiful compositions about him. He wrote one also comparing him to Jiva Goswami. I haven't seen that one, actually. I've heard about it from Goswami Maharaj. There was some, and I haven't heard so much about this, but there was this. I mean, we can recognize some of the similarities, but there was this recognition amongst the disciples of Saraswati Thakur of this connection with Jiva Goswami. You know, Jiva Dyer Abhirakshitam. Jiva Goswami, who's in this mood of a protector, right? Jiva Goswami has some fierceness about him. Rupa and Sanatan, they're showing themselves in a very meek way, very humble, very meek. But Jiva Goswami is ready to fight, to serve his gurus, right? And Saraswati Thakur had that mood also. Sridhar Maharaj compared him to Mike Tyson. He said something like, or was it Muhammad Ali, who said, "I am the greatest"? Wow, that's Muhammad Ali. Okay, mixing. I'm thinking of another. They both said that. I think maybe it was Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, that's more of the time.
Okay, there was a Mike Tyson story. That's another story. I'll save for another time. I'll tell it now. It's very funny. The deity of Krishna in our Navadvip temple, they brought from Jaipur. And Gurudev, because originally Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he brought the Govardhan Shila, right? And then a few years later, he brought the deity of Mahaprabhu. And then eventually he felt, well, now is the time to bring Radha Krishna. And so he sent Srila Govinda Maharaj and his godbrother Jajavar Maharaj and a couple of brahmacharis to Jaipur to bring back the deities. But they had a really hard time finding the deities that they wanted, and there were some issues, and the time was running out, right? And there was this one pair of deities, Radha Krishna deities, but that they were thinking about, but Gurudev said that the Krishna deity was very muscular, like Mike Tyson, he said. And then they were talking about whether they could maybe take those deities, and then Jajavar Maharaj, he said something like, no, we won't take these deities. And Gurudev told him, oh, be careful. If you say that, then the deity will follow you. If you say like that, you know. And then in the end, they realized they didn't have time. They had to take those deities. But Gurudev, what he did is he gave some instruction to the Murtiwala, to make some adjustment on the form of the deity. So he wasn't Mike Tyson anymore. Yeah. Yeah, a few other things he commented that was very funny about the deity. Yeah, I heard in one recording. Yeah, it was Mike Tyson. Yeah. But yeah, I think it was Muhammad Ali. Yeah. That Srila Sridhar Maharaj said that I am the greatest, and Saraswati Thakur had that mood also, but for his gurus, they're the greatest, and I'm ready to prove it. He had that strong type of spirit. He said that he once he gave a talk, this big public talk, and it was in a park, this big public space, and he issued a challenge, I'm ready to face anyone. If anyone says they have something higher, I'm ready to prove to them, what my gurus are giving is the highest. What Mahaprabhu is giving is the highest. He issued this challenge like that in this big public meeting like that. He had that type of spirit. And so Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he made this, and he has this composition too, I've heard of, where he's comparing him to Jiva Goswami. And also, I saw in one article of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, where he said that, because actually it's like 2 weeks before Jiva Goswami's disappearance day is also coming up. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned that everyone thought, let me see here. What's the date of Jiva Goswami's disappearance? Because I remember, it is it's like Srila Jiva Goswami's disappearance is the 14th. So it's exactly 2 weeks before. So Jiva Goswami's disappearance is just 2 weeks later. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned that many of the disciples, they thought he was going to leave on that day, that he would choose to leave on that day. But then in the end he left just 2 weeks before. And he left it was the 31st of January 1936. And the 1st of January 1937, according to Western calculation, like around 4:30 in the morning. Gurudev also, he left at that time. And actually our Gurudev's passing was very similar also. It was like the same time, and like 4:30 in the morning, and also Gurudev left in Calcutta, and Saraswati Thakur also. And then it was brought to Navadvip. But another very wonderful composition of Saraswati Thakur, I chanted that in the beginning. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he actually described himself how in this poem, and it's only 4 lines, right? Srila Sridhar Maharaj has this capacity, like to express in a very concise but very profound way, So, in Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he made some comment about this verse, saying, I've captured him in a cage of poetry. Like a Royal Bengal tiger. I've captured him in a cage of poetry. Nikila Bhuvan, he's describing like the whole mission of Saraswati Thakur, he's encapsulating in these 4 lines. His mission and his inner nature, who he was and what he did. Nikila Bhuvana Maya, Chinna Vichina Karchi, Vibhuda Bahula Mrigya Mukti Mahanta Datri, Shiti Liti Vidi, Ragaraja Vadesha Dani, Vilasatu Ridi Nityam Bhakti Sanantavani. And there's some, he's describing like the 3 phases of his mission. That the first, Nikila Bhuvana Maya, Chinna Vichina Karchi, like the whole world of illusion, like the plane of Maya, the plane of exploitation. Chinna Vichina means he cut it to pieces. He slashed it to pieces. Yeah, it means like that, like slashing to pieces. He cut that to pieces. And then his second step, Vibhuda Bahula Mrigya Mukti Mahanta Dachi, like the mad search of the scholars after liberation, moksha. He put an end to that. He put an end to the mad search of the scholars after liberation, after mukti. He put it. So the plane of exploitation, the plane of renunciation, and then his third step, Shiti Liti Vidi. That he means that he slackened. Then entering the plane of devotion, he slackened the Vidi marg. Showing that, real devotion is focused on the pleasure of Krishna, the satisfaction of Krishna. It is not about following different rules and formalities, right? But the real essence is the satisfaction of Krishna, right? And so, like, for example, he adjusted the observance of Ekadashi, right? Not that you just do a full day fast for your own gain, right? And you can't do any service, of course. But, the focus is on seva. Right? But you take what you need, so you can serve, right? And so you take simplified prasad, but so you can still serve, right? And he also emphasized, the principle of Yukta Vairagya. That was very central to his mission. Proper renunciation. Renunciation in devotion, right, in service. Nothing is actually to be renounced, but everything put in connection with Krishna. So Shitti Litti Vidhi, and then Raja Vadesha Dani. And he gave that Krishna of Vrindavan, that sweet Krishna of Vrindavan. As the Rad, not just that, but Radha. Actually, he doesn't say, because Saraswati Thakur, that's another point. He is completely on the side of Radharani. And one internal name that he revealed, Rishabhanu Nandini Dayita Das, who is the servitor of Radharani, the daughter of Rishabhanu Raj. So he wholly identified with the service of Srimati Radharani. So in this verse, Srila Sridhar Maharaj wrote, Radesha, Radha's Lord. That is how he refers to Krishna, Radha's Lord. And there was that occasion in Govardhan, they're observing some local king doing parikrama right around the Govardhan hill, and one of the disciples, oh look, there has so much reverence. Around Radha Kund, doing parikrama Radha Kund. Oh, they have so much regard for Radharani like we do. And Saraswati Thakur said, oh, but their stance is just the opposite. They're worshipping Krishna, and they see, oh, Radharani is very dear to Krishna. So they're also worried. But we are thinking just the other way. That we are worshipping Radharani, she is our divine mistress. And because Krishna is dear to her, then we are also worshipping Krishna. That was his mood. We hear one occasion, one thing about Saraswati Thakur, he was dealing with so much imitationism, right? Sahajism. So many persons who are putting on some show of devotion or twisting the teachings in different ways. And so one aspect of his nature was that he kept everything within. He was very restrained, is what I want to say. Because while so many persons were making an exhibition of their so-called devotion, right? Saraswati Thakur is showing that's not the way that we do things, right? It's not that, it's not objective evolution of consciousness, it's subjective evolution, right? From the inner subjective plane, something will come out. Not by making some movement in the objective world, we're going to create some subjective, quality. It's from in to out, not out to in, right? And so he was very restrained, and he would not sing in kirtan, actually. He would not dance, yeah. He wouldn't dance, he wouldn't sing. Even as a child, he wouldn't smile. There was some school photo they had to do. And it might have actually been like a choir photo, because we hear he's refusing to open his mouth. And the teacher told him, at least can you pretend that you're singing, because he's just keeping the straight face. So he always kept this very solemn exterior. But internally, there's so much going on. And there was this one occasion when there was some respectable gentleman visiting him, and and this gentleman was glorifying Lakshmi Devi. And Srila Saraswati Thakur, he was hearing that. And then he's naturally connecting to Radharani, right? And Saraswati Thakur was feeling that, but Radharani, she is so much greater, right? She is our supreme mistress, our supreme goddess. And so he was feeling this urge to glorify Radharani. But at the same time, he was feeling, but her glories are so high, they're not fit to be spoken in this assembly, in this moment, right? It is so high, and how can I just speak that like that? So there was this internal conflict, right, that was going on, and finally he fainted. He fell off of his chair. what we hear. He fainted. We hear also, there Srila Sridhar Maharaj told us some description that some of the early devotees, the very first devotees, followers of Saraswati Thakur, like before he had, developed this big mission, when he was staying in this, they called it Braja Patan in Mayapur. He had some small place, and some of these early disciples, they would witness sometimes when he was like speaking to them. He wasn't just speaking to them. Srila Sridhar Maharaj gave some description that it was like he was forcibly trying to make them taste some nectar, and how his face would sometimes flush. And they described, like, we understood what is meant by lotus face, because his face was flushing, like white and red, and sometimes pounding the table, and with so much intensity, so much vitality, he was trying to convey to them. Srila Sridhar Maharaj also told how he recalled hearing about Srila Saraswati Thakur as a boy from one of his uncles. One of his uncles was some type of a guru, and he recalls overhearing his uncle like speaking about him, and because it's all in the same area, right? It's all in the Navadvip, Hapanya, Srila Sridhar saying we're all in the same region, right? The Gauda Mandal, and there he heard this, because Saraswati Thakur, his fame like kind of gradually grew, this like young, brilliant, young scholar, sannyasi. And he always had this mood of like a fighter, like to establish Mahaprabhu as the highest. Even when he was a young boy at school, and we hear Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father, was worried about him sometimes, and because he would get into fights, in school, and he told him, Bhaktivinoda told him once, like, please, try to settle down, and Saraswati Thakur told him, don't worry, like I know what I'm doing. But then later, and he's in this like small place with a few followers around him in Mayapur, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj recalled his uncle giving some description about him. Like there's this like young, new sannyasi, and I'm not sure he had actually taken sannyas at that point or not. But he described him as a bull. When a bull is like ready to fight, and it's like kind of pawing the ground, like getting ready to fight. He describes Saraswati Thakur like that. He was always ready to, stand for the dignity of Mahaprabhu's mission. And his fame gradually grew, and he used to receive different visitors, like different distinguished persons would come to visit him, speak with him, debate with him, and he was always very straight. Very straight and very revolutionary. Like straight as an arrow. That was his, like, one of his distinguishing characteristics. Very different from his father. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's style is very harmonizing, right? Accommodating everyone. Very inclusive. But Saraswati Thakur's mood is not like that. We hear of that time when he's like a 10-year-old boy or something, and Saraswati Thakur was quite famous, well renowned himself, right? In the upper class society, and a magistrate working for the British government, and there was that occasion we hear of when some so-called like great Mahatma, Siddha Mahapurush, Babaji came to visit. They're having some discussion. And Gurudev said Bhaktivinoda Thakur was clear about how he stood, but he was still accommodating, and to the point where these persons felt comfortable to visit him. That they knew Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he's on a different page, but he was very accommodating and warm, and they would converse, and and so there was this one occasion, I forget his name, but he was visiting, you've heard that story, he was visiting Saraswati Thakur, and Saraswati Thakur was like young boy, 10 years old or something, and in India the custom is the children first thing in the morning they give their respects to their parents, right? But that morning Saraswati Thakur, he comes, he approaches his father, he's talking to this gentleman, and he gives his obeisance on the ground from some distance. And he's Saraswati Thakur, he's very brilliant, bright boy. You can see he's someone special, and so that gentleman, he was intrigued. Oh, who is that very bright-looking boy there? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, oh, he is my son. Well, why is he staying so far away? Why is he giving his dandavat so far? Oh, he's taken a vow. He won't come within 100 feet of a sahajya. And you are a first-class sahajya, That was his, from that young age, that was his style. And then there was this incident I'm remembering when he was later in that small center in Mayapur. There was one occasion one Mayavadi visited him, and they're having some discussion, right, going on for some time, and then it came time for prasadam, right, the arti, noon arti, and the bhogas offered, and then one lady, she was a servant to their disciple. She came to bring the prasad to Saraswati Thakur. But the traditional custom in India is different castes are not mixing. And if the lower caste touches the food, it's considered contaminated. The higher caste won't take, right? Brahminical class, they won't take. And that lady, you could see she was from some lower caste, and that Mayavadi saw, and he was very surprised that, oh, you're going to take that prasad, like she's touched it, you're going to take that. And Saraswati Thakur said, she is a, let me get that, what's the right order? I told the story before. He said, she is a Vaishnava, right? So she is pure. But then Saraswati Thakur said, but beyond that, it is Mahaprasad, so it cannot be contaminated. And he said, even if you gave it to me, I would have to take. I heard Gurudev tell that story. That was his mood, like very straight. Straight as an arrow, very strong mood. And the thing is, like, he had this potency, so people, they could accept. What other people could not do, could not say, he could do. And I was mentioning recently that occasion, he gave a lecture at this university in Dhaka, what's now Bangladesh, and he like said to all these students and university professors, he quoting Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we sang that song the other day, all mundane knowledge is an exhibition of Maya, and it makes an ass of the jiva. And he quotes this line at a university, all mundane knowledge makes an ass of the jiva. And he announces at the university, everybody accepts, because he had that type of power, There was this other occasion. If we tried to do that, we'll be beaten, we'll be kicked out, right? And there was this occasion when this was earlier, Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to send him sometimes to represent him because Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he gave many public lectures, right, as a part of his mission to establish Mahaprabhu's message. But then in his later years, he would sometimes send Saraswati Thakur to represent him. And there was one conference, it was like a 3-4 day conference, and everyone had, no, maybe it was like 6 days. It was extended period. And every day, everyone had a chance to speak. It was something like that. They have these conferences, right? And Saraswati Thakur spoke on the subject of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. And we hear he spent the first 3 days glorifying Brahmins and quoting so many verses from the scriptures. And then after that, the following few days, he glorified Vaishnavas. And he did it in this very, in a very respectful and dignified way. As I understand, there's a book published from that talk. I haven't read it. But what I've understood is that he glorified Brahmins as being the highest within this world, right? They represent the height within this worldly plane, the acme, right? And we know within the sattvic plane in this world. But then Vaishnavas, they're beyond this world, right? So they're to be appreciated from a completely different standpoint. And then at the conclusion of all these talks, everyone who's hearing these talks, they're recognizing, and he's a Vaishnava, right? They're hearing about the glories of the Vaishnavas, and then they're recognizing, Saraswati Thakur, he's a Vaishnava. And then at the conclusion, we hear everyone went mad. It was like hundreds and hundreds of people, and the crowd came upon him. And it was so intense. It was like a life or death situation. You've maybe seen things like that, how mad people can go in India. Someone sent me a picture yesterday, this line of hundreds of people waiting outside the Banka Bihari temple, right? Yeah, people, I was thinking, where else in the world? What's that famous temple in South India? It's every day of the year you have Tirupati. Every day of the year you have to wait a few hours to get in. Yeah. Where else in the world do people have that type of reverence, right? For the Lord, for the saints. It's incredible. And so this crowd was recognizing, here's a real Vaishnava saint. Because it's mentioned, right, the foot dust of the Vaishnava, right? So everyone wants to take the foot dust of the Vaishnava. And there was one very clever man in the group. He was really thinking on his feet, and what he did is he got because they were all crushing upon Saraswati Thakur, and one clever, quick thinking man, he got a pot of water, and he dunked Saraswati Thakur's feet in it. And then he started throwing it out in the crowd, and then they were pacified. Right? But this was the type of presence, the spiritual presence that he had. Very, very powerful. Very powerful. And of course he was a great revolutionary, visionary, right? And like all great visionaries and revolutionaries, he had to deal with a lot of opposition. Right? There were people who tried to kill him, because he was coming out with the real spirit of Vaishnavism, the real spirit of Mahaprabhu. And some people saw him as a threat, right? He's ruining our guru business. Because people could recognize, this is something real, right? And gradually his movement's getting bigger and better, and there are some people who saw him as a threat. And there were others who, to their best sincerity, they just could not understand what he was doing. Because he made so many radical changes, right? Because he's like a great general. Gurudev compared him to a great general on the battlefield who's recognizing what needs to be done to win the war in this moment. And sometimes you have to adopt unconventional methods, right? Sometimes you can't go by the book, right? And Gurudev, he mentions when he was starting his mission, nobody was clapping for Saraswati Thakur, right? Nobody could understand him. Nobody supported him in terms of other institutions, right? They couldn't understand. When he went to Vrindavan, he was starting a grassroots movement, right? But for example, when he went to Vrindavan one year, all the temples closed their doors to him. except for the Radha Raman temple, which is close to our mat. They welcomed him. But they couldn't understand. They thought he's bogus. And we've seen that picture, him coming in Vrindavan in a big motor car. Which in those days, that was unheard of. Gurudev mentioned one disciple of Saraswati Thakur who couldn't understand even how they used to use a horse and cart for preaching. He thought that was radical. Just to give some idea, this is like the 1930s. Because they're thinking like in a stereotyped way, Rup and Sanatan, they're living under trees, just wearing scraps of cloth around them, living on buttermilk and stale rotis. And we're all supposed to do that. That's what being spiritual is all about, right? We're all meant to imitate that. And Saraswati Thakur is coming in, with a big motor car, and he's got this like fancy coat on, and suited and booted, as Gurudev said. Because his idea, yukta vairagya, right? That we use everything in the service of Krishna, and we don't imitate. We worship the Babaji cloth, right? No, we're not going to imitate the Babaji cloth. That's higher. We're actually taking a humble position, taking the sannyas dress, right? Sannyas is not actually like pure Vaishnava practice, because Vaishnavism is beyond Varnashrama system, right? But we're adopting that because we're in a lower position. It's a humble position to take. So we're worshipping Rup and Sanatan. We're worshipping the Babaji dress. But here on our plane, we're recognizing our own human level, and we're working within some level of the social system, the Varnashrama system, to keep us on track, to help us, give us some structure, right? And Srila, and then giving the Brahmin thread to non-Brahmins, right? So many things he did, they were very revolutionary, and there was so much opposition also. But Gurudev mentioned, right, at that time no one could understand, but now everybody understands, and now everybody recognizes, right? Didn't they put Prabhupada like on a Swami Maharaj on like a coin in India? Yeah, they put Swami Maharaj on one of the coins in India. Like on that level in India now, and all over the world, they're recognizing.
Now they are giving Bhagavad Gita from ISKCON as a present to every delegate who comes to India.
Really?
Wow. So they are not giving...
Like the government is officially giving the Swami Maharaj Prabhupada's...
Wow.
Really?
As a gift. Otherwise, they were giving foolish stuff like... before.
Wow.
But now they're giving...
Incredible. There's so much recognition. And this is the movement of Saraswati Thakur. Right? So like on that level now, there's appreciation. But when he started out, it was not like that. There was one time when I think it was during Navadvip Dham Parikrama, and there was like some attack that was coming towards him, and they had to like hide him away, and he exchanged clothes with I think it was Kunja Babu, who later became Keshav Maharaj. He changed. You heard about that? Yeah. He changed out of, because he was in white cloth at the time, and he changed out of his saffron, and they had to like whisk him away because there was some like attack, like for risking his life. I heard like he wouldn't sleep by the window. Like like it was at that level, right? It was at that level. And we also heard from Gurudev, one of the reasons Srila Sridhar Maharaj chose to establish his mat, where he did, in that Koladweep area, Tegadipada. There's a market, it's called Tegadipada, and that right next to our mat, there's this little like neighborhood called Tegadipada, and there's a market. But there was like this whole group of very heavy scholars there who opposed Saraswati Thakur. And Saraswati Thakur wasn't able to gain their favor in his time. And so that was one reason why Srila Sridhar Maharaj, chose to establish his mat there. in that area, because that was his wish, like what, like trying to like fulfill his Guru Maharaj's mission in that way. And he did, and he met with those scholars, and they came to understand, right, who Saraswati Thakur was. And they actually apologized, because they'd made before like some public opposition to Saraswati Thakur, some disrespect. But then the head of this group of pundits, he came and he gave apology to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, because it was after Saraswati Thakur had left the world. And he said, now I understand my offense, and he said, I feel I can be excused if I would take prasad, from Sridhar Maharaj's mat, something like that. So, in this very, bold way, he carried out his mission. And he started with nothing. First he had this small place in Mayapur, and then he finally shifted to Calcutta, because he had this inspiration that, Kolkata, Kali is a place of Kali, and if I really want to defeat Maya, then I have to go to the stronghold, right? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj compared him to Napoleon, right? In that way, and also in the way of, because we hear how Napoleon, the Austro-Hungarian War, right? The French side was losing. They appoint Napoleon as the general, and then the tides shift in favor of the French, right? And we hear there was this discussion on the other side. Oh, what happened? We were winning, and they've appointed this new general, and he doesn't know how to fight properly, right? Oh, he doesn't know how to fight, and he's winning, right? That was the strategy of Saraswati Thakur. And what was that? That he because normally they would work their way up, first attacking the weaker side of the army and then working their way up to the strongest part. But Napoleon was very bold. No, just go straight to the strongest part of the army. If you can crush that, then everything else will follow. So that was Saraswati Thakur's approach. And also in the sense of like adopting alternative methods, right? Because he's coming out, and this is the thing, right? This is the nature of the Paramahamsas, that they can recognize what is the essence, right? We're followers of them, but they're actually seeing what is the real principle here, and in it's like the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was the mood of Saraswati Thakur, like in service to the spirit of what this is, in service to the essential principles. Then how we practice may be a little different, right? And he established, something like a package, right? The Gaudiya Mat, 64 centers. That's not a joke, that 64 centers throughout India. He established where there's a consistent program, right, with established scriptures that we study, approved, texts that we read, that we study, Vaishnavas who we take shelter of, right? There's some systematic means of developing understanding. And what's the most essential point? Sadhu Sangha. Right? In this way, everyone can get some service connection in this mission of Saraswati Thakur, Mahaprabhu. That was what he established this for. And then his final wish was to take this to the West, right? And he started that, sending preachers to London, to Germany, and then finally through Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Swami Maharaj, right, to America, right? That was his desire initially to go, but then eventually through Swami Maharaj it was fulfilled. So that going back to that beautiful verse of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, the final line is very beautiful. Vilasatu hridi nityam Bhaktisiddhanta vani. And it's this like clever, beautiful, poetic play on words, right? Bhaktisiddhanta, because Bhaktisiddhanta is part of his name, but it also means the conclusions of devotion, right? Bhaktisiddhanta. Vilasatu hridi nityam Bhaktisiddhanta. May that play within your heart eternally. May that divine message of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati play within your heart. Vilasatu Hridi Nityam Bhaktisiddhanta Vani. May that play within your heart eternally. So that's, we're praying that that may play in our heart, right? By the grace of our gurus. And then, coming, that line is that current, right? That Rupa Nugadara, right? Coming to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and we hear, yesterday was the departure day, right? And we hear that at that time, 24 hours before his departure, he called for Srila Sridhar Maharaj, right? And he requested him to sing that song, Shri Rupa Manjari Pada. And this way he was indicating, the way the line in which, which way his line would continue, right? He didn't actually leave a clear statement, And Gurudev said because he had so many qualified disciples, actually, and it may cause some upset if he eliminates certain persons, right? But he indicated, and everyone present could recognize that, and they described, like some mystic transmission took place. And even, we hear, he called especially for Srila Sridhar Maharaj, asked him to sing this song, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj hesitating in his humble mood. And then the big secretary of the Gaudiya Math, Kunja Babu. Oh, sorry, before when I said Kunja Babu, I made a mistake. I don't mean, his name was Kunja Bihari, who later became Keshav Maharaj. Was his name Kunja Bihari? Vinod, it was Vinod, who I was mentioning before, who made the dress exchange. I said Kunja Babu, that's wrong. It was Vinod Bihari, who later became Keshav Maharaj. But Kunja Babu, he was like the big manager of the Gaudiya Math. He saw Srila Sridhar Maharaj was hesitating, so he asked someone else who's known for singing. It was actually Puri Maharaj, who wasn't, I don't think he was Puri Maharaj at that time. He was a brahmachari. But then Saraswati Thakur stopped him. No, I don't want to hear the sweet tune. I want to hear Sridhar Maharaj sing. And we must honor Puri Maharaj. He had such genuine Vaishnava mood. We heard from Gurudev, this is Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj. He later, expressed to Srila Sridhar Maharaj, genuine Vaishnavata, saying, Prabhupada, he didn't want to hear from me. He wanted to hear from you. Expressing with appreciation like that. He wanted to hear from you. Pure Vaishnava, Gurudev called him pure Vaishnava, non-envious mood. So everyone could recognize that he's specifically asking for this song, and he would specifically want Sridhar Maharaj to sing that song, and everyone could see, And so, we feel very blessed that that current of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is continuing, through our Guru Sridhar Maharaj, and then to our beloved Guru Srila Govinda Maharaj. So, well, there's so much that can be said, but have to stop somewhere. But he is really everything for us, he is our, and we hope, that, as time continues, we can remember, who is Saraswati Thakur, what is the importance of his position in our line. And Gurudev, a few times I heard him mention, that he said it's very important that we remember Saraswati Thakur, and, he, as I said, he had this protective spirit, keeping the purity, the dignity of what this is, and, and keeping things real, right? And Gurudev mentioned, it's very important that we remember this mood of Saraswati Thakur. And he said, otherwise, within 50 years or 100 years, everything will become polluted, right? Everything will become polluted. But the way in which Saraswati Thakur made his presentation, there was no room for nonsense, no room for imitationism. Nowadays, I'll just be honest, it's very sad to see sometimes what some missions are doing in their kirtan style, and this is not the mood of Saraswati Thakur. We don't chant the name of Radharani, so freely, We have to remember that, and we try, we don't go into such an extravagant way, right? We are there to serve the kirtan. Not that the kirtan is to serve us. It's not a concert, right? It's like heartbreaking I'm seeing nowadays. I'm happy to see kirtan is becoming popular, but I see some of the styles and some of these videos I see is like hundreds of thousands or millions even of views. But this is not the mood of Saraswati Thakur. This is not our line at all. He would be very angry to see that. We want reality, not as Swami Maharaj mentioned, the mind's bananas. We don't want to eat the mind's bananas, right? But we want a real connection. We are inviting the pure name, right? And then how do we approach it? Tashi Krishna Namadi Nabhavet Gayaminjai Sevan Mukhi Jivada Swayane Visturtita. Right? That name is beyond, we can't chant that name with this tongue. Beyond the jurisdiction of our senses. We cannot hear that name with these ears. But Sevan Mukhi, but through the spirit of service, dedication, sacrifice, then that name may be pleased to descend and reveal himself within the plane of our senses. He may dance on our tongue if he so wishes. So we want to serve that. And there's this amazing talk of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I want to publish it, where Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he's speaking about the glories of the name, and it's an amazing talk, and he's quoting all these verses from the scriptures in praise of the name. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj started out remembering his Guru Maharaj, Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur, and saying that sometimes, from time to time, Saraswati Thakur used to say, like in this mood of sadness and lamentation, oh, how many days have gone by, and I have not spoken of the glories of the name. In that humble mood. Oh, we are not thinking about the name. We are not speaking about the name. We are not remembering the glories of the name. How many days have gone by? That type of humility he felt in him. Within himself, and Srila Sridhar Maharaj said actually his whole life was for the service of the name. His whole existence was for that. But yet, sometimes that feeling would come to him. So we're trying to remember that mood of Saraswati Thakur and make some genuine approach. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, something he used to say, Saraswati Thakur, was give your attention to the root. Water the root, and the fruit will come automatically. Don't worry too much about the fruit, right? Because there are those who like to, go into these high-level things, right? Very high level topics, high layers of Krishna consciousness, and sometimes we are giving some touch on that. But let's be real. Let's remember where we are. So he said, give your attention to the root. There was this one talk Srila Sridhar Maharaj gave where he mentioned this line which we have here, right? Matala Harijana Kirtanarange Bhujala Ragapata Gaurava Bangen. Srila Sridhar Maharaj said this was the tenor of his whole life. And we heard that talk of Gurudev, who founded. I was there. No, that was in Russia, actually. But I remember when it was first published. I wasn't there, it was in Navadvip. But he was speaking of that verse, and he said, this is our principle, this is our bhajan, and I always forget the third thing. Do you remember? This is our conception, this is our principle, this is our bhajan, this is our practicing life, that verse. Everything is in there, along those lines. that Pujala Ragapa, it is above. Right? Gaurava Bhanga, we are worshipping that. He was very clear about that. That is so high and we are here. Right? We're worshipping that from here. That was the whole tenor of his life. Like very, all the time, in every point, at every point. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he said this one time, he was having a cottage built by Lalita Kund in Vrindavan area. And the first story was constructed, and then Saraswati Thakur mentioned a second story is necessary, but we will not live there. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj asked him, then who will live there? If you're going to build another level, who will live there? And Saraswati Thakur said, our gurus will live there. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Gaur Kishore, they will live there, and we will serve them below. They were not present in this world, but that was his, always he had that mood that I'm serving my gurus, that is above, and we are here, right? We will stay in Govardhan, our gurus will stay in Radha Kund, our gurus will stay in the highest place, and we will stay one step below. We will go and serve them, and then we come back. That was very consistent. And all these high-level topics, Radha, Krishna, Leela, Madhura, Rasa, he kept that like on an upper shelf. Right? Srila Sridhar Maharaj said one time he went to visit some old school friend in Vrindavan, and his friend had this program, Bhagavat Saptaha, right? 7-day Bhagavatam reading. It's like a tradition in India. And they had come to the section of the Rasa Leela, the 10th canto, and that friend had invited Saraswati Thakur, and Saraswati Thakur entered. He heard what they're reading. He gave his dandavat and he left. And his friend came after him. Oh, what happened? He said, my gurus, they've given this order. We don't hear this. We don't go into this discussion. So I must follow my gurus. One time he was sitting between Radha Kund and Shama Kund, right? And he gave this whole talk on the Upadeshamrita, right? Starting Vacho Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udaropasta Vegam, Etan Vegam, Yo Vishaheta Dira, Sarvam Apiman Pritivim Sashisha, right? The urges, starting from this basic level. Can you control the urges of your tongue, of your belly, of your genitals, of your mind, right? Have you done that yet? Right? And he's sitting between Radha Kund and Shama Kund. He's not talking about, Radha Krishna dancing in the forest of Vrindavan. He's not talking about that. He's talking about, can you control the 6 urges? Let's be real. You don't need to go flying in the sky, And another time, Srila Sridhar Maharaj said he didn't go himself, but I think it was Bharati Maharaj, one of his sannyasis. He was going to lead the Vrindavan Parikrama, and he told them to preach the teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. Right? Prahlad Maharaj, who's established in Shanta Rasa, right? The so-called lowest rasa, right? So preach the teachings of Prahlad, right? He said they're all ripe in sahajya, imitationism. Right? Try first to understand the basis. Prahlad is representing Shuddha Bhakti, the basis of pure devotion. First understand that before you go to all these higher things, right? So he was very, very clear on that, very clear, very strong on that point. And that is above and we are here. Right? And we were mentioning this morning actually, how nowadays we see sometimes, and not so much in our mission, our Gurudev was very clear on that point actually, but we see in some other missions it's becoming more common to go into some of these higher books, it's just a book that we can read. But Gurudev mentioned that, he mentioned one disciple of Saraswati Thakur, he published, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, one of his most famous books is Jaiva Dharma, right? And I haven't read it myself, but it's written in 2 parts. And the first part is more for our level. And the second part is going into some high discussion of rasa. And Gurudev mentioned this one disciple of Saraswati Thakur. This is in later years after Saraswati Thakur left the world. And he published it in 2 different volumes, because he's recognizing it's not appropriate to give the full book to everyone. So the first volume is for us, and just to keep it alive, we'll have the second volume. And maybe we won't read it, but it's there, right? And Gurudev mentioned that disciple, he said he was not very qualified. he said, but even he knew that. Saying he was not the best preacher, he was not the most intelligent, he was not the most qualified, but even he knew that much. And he said, but now they're making a massacre, right? Publishing all these different books, like Ujjvala, Nilamani, and all these things. But there should be some feeling of reverence, right? Or shyness, as you mentioned this morning. So we were saying this morning, right, how we feel so fortunate, because our gurus are training us and trying to inject something of the feeling, the proper mood and approach, right? This is not just a transaction of information, but they're training. What's really substantial is the mood that we're cultivating, right? Like our Gurudev mentioned, when I go to Vrindavan, I'm not thinking, oh, this is where Krishna did this is where the gopis did that. Gurudev said, I'm not thinking like that. I'm thinking, what was the mood of, where did Rupa Goswami stay? What was Rupa Goswami's meditation? Where did my Guru Maharaj like to go? Where did Gaur Kishore stay? What was his meditation when he was here? Where did Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur stay? Like through the lens of our gurus, right? I appreciated that so much. I thought, this is so much in the line of Saraswati Thakur, right? So we're very fortunate. Our gurus are showing us this cautious approach, right? Cautious. Someone who's actually approaching the real thing. What will be their mood, right? Like the Julan Yacha. Srila Sridhar Maharaj was particularly strict in upholding Saraswati Thakur's standard. Like the Julan Yacha, the swing festival. Srila Sridhar Maharaj did not allow that. As Saraswati Thakur did not allow also. Later, many of the disciples, they did, people like to do is attracting people. But Srila Sridhar Maharaj said, I am not free to do that. I am following my Guru Maharaj. He even had to throw out Krishnadas Babaji from his temple. Right? Krishnadas Babaji, who is his beloved brother, god brother. And it gave him much pain to do that. Because Krishnadas Babaji is a pure Vaishnava. But he has a different mood. He's Paramahamsa. He's a Babaji. Right? Avadut. A different mood, different style. So he's mixing with some Sahajiya, Leela Kirtan, right? And Srila Sridhar Maharaj knows, Saraswati Thakur did not allow that. So you cannot stay in my mat. If you want to go, you can go, but not when you're staying in my mat. Because I'm trying to represent my Guru Maharaj. And Krishnadas Babaji could not follow. So finally, in pain, Srila Sridhar Maharaj had to ask him, please, you leave. Right? Because he's sticking to the wish of his Guru Maharaj. Very strictly he followed that. So we feel very fortunate. Our gurus are showing us, an authentic way to approach, right? What is the mood of one who is actually seeing the thing, right? Someone who's actually in touch with the substance, with what care and caution they're approaching, right? They're showing that to us, So we're very fortunate. Maybe what we have is very, 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 very small, but it is real. We're not imagining anything. We're not in any illusion about anything. We're not concocting some mental Krishna, right? It's a mental thing. But very carefully we're trying to follow our gurus, right? With whatever little we have, we're trying to approach in an authentic way. So we are so grateful that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Param Guru Dev, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sridhar Dev Goswami, or Guru Dev, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Govinda Dev Goswami. They're showing the real path of Krishna consciousness for us, and we are all trying to the best of our capacity to follow that, to uphold that, to continue that, right? Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Karmat Raj Shri Chaitanya Mat ki Jai. Tadiya Shaka Mat ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat ki Jai. Vishwavyapi Tadiya Shaka Mat ki Jai. Acharya Vrinda ki Jai. Seva Vrinda ki Jai. Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Lord.